Welcome to Giants Training Camp Report, presented by Investors Bank. I'm Bob Papa, along with Super Bowl champion Shaun O'Hara at the Quest Diagnostics Training Center. We welcome in the head coach of the New York Giants over at MetLife Stadium. Joe Judge joins us on the program. And Coach, this is the new normal, and obviously you're over there, we're over here. Just take the fans through how this has all worked out for you and your staff and how you guys are making the best out of a difficult situation.
Yeah, I'd say we like to say more the temporary normal. You know, as soon as it gets sorted out, we're all together all the time. That'd be a whole lot better. But you know what? A lot of work's going on in this training camp in terms of setting up the stadium to really make the function of training camp in our facility as normal as possible. We want to make this feel like training camp for the players. You know, they did a tremendous job to the virtual spring of breaking out some walls, you know, forming some bonds as a team, learning the schemes and systems, getting a good start on it. But this time of year, Shaun, you know how it is. We want to be together as a team. We got to start forming some camaraderie and some chemistry together in the same room. We just have to do it with protocols. You know, and everything that we've set up for them here allows them to just go ahead and follow the rules and directions, and then everything else is just be yourself.
Coach, it certainly smells like training camp. Obviously, for right now, with everything you guys are going through, it's not quite football yet. But what's been your message to the team about here's the type of football team we're going to be, and here's what we're going to bring to the field when we get on it?
Well, you know, right now it's about daily improvement, Shaun, and that's the biggest thing. You know, the point we're in a training camp right now, it's still that acclimation period. We've got the group that was in the early report. They're on type of phase 2, so that's offense and defense separate. We can go full speed individual drills. We can do some different team drills at more of a controlled pace. We can't go offense versus defense yet in that point. For the guys who came at the regular reporting date, they're still with the strength and training staff, and they're doing a lot of weights and running on the field, getting their bodies acclimated. And then at night, we have walkthroughs together with all 80 on the field at the same time. We can go offense versus defense, again, at a controlled pace. You know, really, but the mental part is what we're stressing right now. This is a good time for us to get, you know, our systems installed, to take a lot of extra time for meetings, to go over the details, to make sure that these guys understand exactly what to do. And then when we get on the field and go full speed, it's not about the what, but the how. And we can really coach the technique and emphasize, you know, the fundamentals and the finish and get the team moving there.
How have you been able to gauge, you know, how your players conditioning-wise and from a workout standpoint? And has anybody really jumped out at you as, you know, wow, this guy, you know, looks like he's ready to rock? Or maybe there's some guys that you're kind of feel like need to kind of pick it up a little bit from a conditioning standpoint?
You know what I'll say as a whole, I'm extremely pleased with how our team came in. And there's a difference between being in shape and in being in training shape. You know, being in shape, you come in from running on the summer, lifting on your own, you come in ready to get your body ready. And now we're trying to get them into training shape, where you actually train your body to perform the necessary functions on the field at full speed in competitive situations. That's the biggest difference. But these guys did everything we asked them to do. They came in, all the guys were at their weight. You know, all the guys came in really transforming their bodies. There's guys that I haven't seen, you know, Cam Fleming being one. I haven't seen Cam for, you know, a couple of years now, you know, other than seeing him at a game last year we played him. But physically, you know, his body's different than I've ever seen it before, and he's moving tremendous. But we're building them up, and we're getting ready for, you know, really, we get them on the field Wednesday and Thursday together with a phase 2, and then on Friday we call it more like phase 3. Shaun, you remember from being, you know, an old spring ball, but it's not too different from what the original day 1 and 2 have been for the past year's training camp.
I'm curious, you know, when we spoke with you a few months ago, we were talking about the draft class and how Andrew Thomas coming in at 4th overall, and, you know, would we start him off at right tackle, and what would that look like? Now, obviously, with Nate Solder opting out, how has that changed Andrew Thomas's approach and the way that you guys are coaching him?
You know, it really hasn't. You know, all of our linemen are still working both sides. We're still building in position flexibility. You know how it is. At any point in the season, a left tackle may have to go right or vice versa. Guard's got to play center. You've got to be able to kick somebody out from center, maybe to tackle at some point in an emergency situation. So we're still cross-training all of our players. We're still doing everything we can to make sure everyone has a solid base on both sides. When the pads do get on, Shaun, then we'll start to narrow down really where their primary focus is.
Coach, final question. Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with Daniel Jones, the quarterback, and what are some of the characteristics about him as a player and a person that have jumped out at you?
Well, the number one thing that stands out to me is his work ethic. And we talk about guys coming in shape, and he's definitely a guy who comes in. He's very competitive within the team conditioning sessions and running. He's trying to win every race. You know, you can definitely tell he's worked hard, his body's worked hard at his craft in this offseason. So the work ethic really is what jumps out at you. You can't be a leader if you don't put the work in. You can't be a leader if you're not a good player on the field and you don't do what you preach. And, you know, so far he's setting the tone, you know, with his on-the-field work habits. And again, as we get into competitive situations, then he'll probably end up being a little more vocal when he needs to be and get guys going with it. But right now, I'm very impressed by the way he's come, ready to work and ready to improve.
Coach, we appreciate a couple minutes. A lot of fun catching up, and enjoy those workouts.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Shaun. Appreciate you.
Shaun, obviously this is the new norm in what teams are dealing with in the National Football League. And on Monday morning, the rookies and the early reporting veterans entered into phase 2, which means they'll have helmets on, and coaches can now finally be on the field. Talk about trying to prepare yourself for something that you've never had to do before. None of these players or coaches or anybody has ever had to deal with these kind of circumstances.
Yeah, usually it's the rookies coming in, Bob, and they're the ones that are trying to figure things out for the first time. And, all right, where do I go? What do I do? Now everybody's doing it. And it's new for the coaches, the players. So in a sense, the rookies and these young players, there's probably a little bit of a, hey, we're all in this together. But I think when you look at for these young players, how important this is going to be for them, because once physically you put the pads on, things are going to get a lot faster. So I think right now it's an exciting time. I'm sure that they're focused on the fact that they get to be a New York Giant. For a lot of them, this has been a huge dream of theirs, and now they're here, they're fulfilling it. But when you look at the mental aspect of it, that's all it is right now. Mentally, installing a new offense and a new defense, that's challenging. How many mental reps can I get in the walkthrough? And then when you find a way to get on the field and put all that into action, now you're not thinking, you're just reacting. And I think that's one of the things that you're trying to get these young players to do.
All right, Shaun, I'm going to hit you with a little trivia nugget. Do you realize Sterling Shepard is now the longest tenured New York Giant?
Wow. That's unbelievable. I was told there'd be no math today, Bob, but that's unbelievable turnover for this roster. And man, I feel like just yesterday Sterling Shepard was a young pup coming in, and we couldn't wait to see what he was bringing to the table. And now he's the longest tenured Giant. That's impressive.
Well, that's why the NFL stands for not for long.
Indeed.
Obviously, a veteran guy like Golden Tate is here, but how can Sterling Shepard mentor the young players, especially mentoring them on what it means to be a Giant?
Yeah, Sterling Shepard is no doubt going to embrace that role. He's been a leader since he showed up here, and you could see it starts with the work ethic and everything that he does on the practice field. He does not take a rep off. He competes in every single drill. So I think that becomes contagious. And I think for Sterling, when you look at his ability to go the extra mile, how many times do we show highlights of Saquon Barkley busting off long runs? And Sterling Shepard is down the field blocking somebody, springing him for those big long runs. So I think he's a physical wide receiver. That's contagious as well. So all those attributes that he has, they're going to be a great example for these young guys to want to emulate.
You've got Jason Garrett coming in as the offensive coordinator, and they had a pretty good running back in Dallas as well. What do you expect from Barkley in this offense in 2020?
Yeah, it's probably one of the things I'm most excited about this season for the Giants. This run game, how much more physical it's going to be at the point of attack. I think it's going to be much more efficient. I think they're going to be much more accountable up front with this scheme. When you think about what the Dallas Cowboys have done, think about some of the last couple running backs they've had. DeMarco Murray led the league in rushing a few years ago. All right, when you look at Zeke Elliott, he did the same thing. Their offense has all centered around being physical, running the football, and not just the same play over and over. There's been a lot of misdirection. There's a lot of gadget plays built into that. And then a lot of course, big chunk passing plays that come from that. So I'm excited for the offense as a whole, for the culture that's going to bring, the confidence, the physical aspect of it. But I also think Saquon Barkley kind of being in that home position, maybe a few less shotgun runs. I think that will be interesting to see how he handles that. And I know he can carry the load. We know he's strong enough. But I know in year 3 as a player, you always feel more confident. The game has kind of slowed down a little bit. You're much more aware. You're much smarter. And I think Saquon Barkley, we're going to see the best version of that he has this year.
Yeah, and we saw as a rookie the threat that he was catching the ball out of the backfield. And the Giants signed Dion Lewis as part of their running back depth. And boy, when you talk about a guy who's a weapon in the passing game, Dion Lewis certainly fits the bill.
Yeah, he's unbelievable in space. And I think when you can get him out in green grass or green turf and you've got a linebacker that's trying to cover him, he is going to be a handful. But I also think with Dion Lewis, he's somebody that can handle some run games, some third down running plays where you get him out on the perimeter, maybe some toss sweeps he excels in all of that. So I think it's going to be great to have him and Saquon as a 1-2 punch. You might see them both in the backfield at the same time, which would be even tougher for defense to figure out, because now you have 2 linebackers possibly covering running backs out in the passing game. So Dion Lewis, absolutely an addition. I think the other thing with Dion is he's such a smart running back. If you're going to be a third down running back, you've got to understand coverages and blitzes. That's something that he can help Saquon Barkley out as he's still trying to learn defenses and how they're trying to attack you.
The Giants signed rookie Javon Leake out of Maryland as an undrafted free agent, kid from the Bronx. And then you have Wayne Goldman, who I feel has been an underutilized asset. Felt like he fell out of favor in the second half of last year under the previous staff, but I think Wayne Goldman's a pro's pro, and he could help this group.
Yeah, Bob, you definitely saw his ability when he had a chance. A couple years ago, obviously, I was very impressed with his ability to get north-south. He's a very physical runner, and when he sees the hole and he's decisive, man, he gets downhill in a hurry. So I think for him in this new offense, you are going to see a lot more downhill runs. You're going to see a lot more physical running plays, which will suit Wayne Goldman. But like I mentioned with Saquon Barkley, every year that you come in as a running back, you've kind of learned a new part of the NFL game, of what defenses are trying to do and concepts offensively, what you're trying to do. So I think for that, we're going to see Wayne Goldman's going to improve from a mental aspect of it, which should accelerate the speed of the game for him physically.
Well, Shaun, obviously competition is going to be key, and it's been a lot of fun being back at the facility, having a chance to work with you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, man. It's been 5 months. It's been great to be back here, and it's been great hanging out with you in your slippers.
Yeah, well, no,
I don't know how I compete with that. Speaking of competition.
Those are straight from Morocco, pre-pandemic, in a street bazaar.
Very nice.
So for Shaun O'Hara and our entire crew, I'm Bob Papa. For all the latest breaking news, make sure you log on to Giants.com. That wraps it up for this edition of the Giants Training Camp Report, presented by Investors Bank.